imagine being an NBA player and you have 82 game season, throw in preseason, postseason. If you were Kobe, right? Like you're playing 100 games a year at least. If I don't understand why I played particularly well or poorly on a Tuesday, how would I expect to either replicate that good performance or learn from the poor performance and come back on Thursday and be any better or be consistent, right? And so we talked about he was, after every game, sort of checking in on like, hey, what worked and why did it work and how did it work? How can I make that work again? Just because I'm Kobe Bryant doesn't mean that like I can just go drop 40. The better I understand the variables that were present when I had success, the more likely I can replicate those performances. Because I can replicate the process of it. I can't just snap my fingers and get the same box score.
This is Coming Up Clutch with JR, helping the world's best in sports, entertainment, and business make winning a lifestyle.
What's up? It's JR, and welcome to another episode of Coming Up Clutch. Today we'll be going behind the scenes with Dr. Cory Shaffer. Cory has spent his career helping athletes, coaches, and executives master their mental performance so they can win when it matters most. He's worked with everyone from Navy special operators to professional athletes to Olympians, and he currently provides sports psychology services for Clemson University and Oregon football. Cory is no slouch. He's earned a PhD in sports psychology from Florida State University, a master's in developmental psychology from Columbia University, and completed his undergraduate degree in human development from Cornell. Cory's also a proud husband and a proud father. He's been in the trenches, not only as a husband and father, but also with some of the most successful individuals in the world. And he knows what it takes to perform at an elite level in sports, business, and life. So today we're going to talk about the key to managing the good old P word. That's pressure. We'll also get into an overlooked habit that is necessary for you to continue to grow and unlock your best. And we'll also get into the 20-mile march and what it says about setting yourself up for sustained success. And before I forget, if you're empowered by this show and learning something, make sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss out when we drop new episodes. Just hit that purple plus on the top right-hand corner of the podcast app. When you do that, you make it easier for others who need this content to see it. And of course, share it. Play that hero to your family, friends, and teammates by giving them the link to this or sending them to comingupclutch.com. And when you go and post about this episode on social, make sure to tag me and Cory. All right, here we go. Let's get Dr. Cory Shaffer live on the mic. Cory Shaffer, my man, welcome to the show. Say what's up to our Coming Up Clutch crew.
What's up, guys? And good to see you, man. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, man. We'll have some fun, impact some lives, and talk a little psychology today. So, man, you've had your hand in a lot of good stuff, from military operators to professional athletes to college athletes to Olympians. Like, you have a lot, but you're also a father, you're a husband. So, considering all of that, and you're on the road a ton, there's got to be at least one embarrassing moment story that you can make us laugh about right now.
Oh, man. I was racking my brain about this question coming into this. I feel like it was hard to land on like one big one. I feel like they're more likely to come in these small blips and moments. I think you can probably attest to becoming a parent. It just feels like every day there's another one of these, whether it's, a meltdown at a restaurant, like as somebody who's, kind of wired the way in which I am, like all that attention, like, oh man, I hate it so much. That feels very embarrassing for me. I'm pretty sure this must have been with our son years ago. I remember like coming into the office and going throughout my day, and then I look down at my jeans or my pants or whatever I'm wearing, and I'm like, I had changed diaper that morning, and I'm like, there's a good chance that what's on my jeans is not something of my own here.
Oh God.
So little things like that, I feel like those are happening on a pretty regular basis. There's no big moment, I guess, that I can share maybe there's some self-preservation there, to be honest. But
So question, that particular day, did you have any meetings where people were actually going to see you?
I mean, this would have been in the last handful of years. So much of what we're doing is, like this online virtual. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming I was probably fine. It just would have been people in the office and,
Yeah.
probably thinking nothing of it.
Thinking or seeing nothing, but smelling something may be a
I
different story.
mean, yeah, yeah. There may have been some conversations at the dinner table in my coworkers' households that evening, but
Man, I wish this show was about me and not about you today, because the stories I have from traveling, as much as you travel, I used to do that a lot. That's for another time and another day.
I did have a recent one that was not great. I was holding up the TSA pre-check line.
Oh,
They're scanning my ID several times. They're like, I don't know what's going on here. And the guy just hands me back my ID and he's like, you need to go to the ticket counter. And I'm like, I'm freaking out, right? Because I tend to cut it. When you travel as much as we do, you cut everything close, right? Like I don't want to spend any extra time in an airport that I need to. So I get up to the ticket counter and I'm like, hey, I'm not sure what's going on. They just told me to come here. And they start looking at my ticket, my ID, this and that. And when the flight was booked, apparently, um, and I've had some fun with my coworker here who books our travel, but I was listed as female. So when I show up and hand my ID and they scan it and it shows a male and I look like this, they're kind of like, we can't let you on the flight.
well,
That wasn't a great one, and that was within the last handful of months. So
I'm biting my tongue. I could say a lot about that right now, but I'm not going there. Let's let's talk what we're here for. So, man, I want to. Oh man, I got so much I want to ask you, because your expertise is so deep and broad. Uh, Pressure. First of all, I'm curious what your take is on pressure. Because there's different sides of this, like oh, it's manufactured, it's all in your head, and then it's like, no, pressure is real. I'm just curious where you land on that.
yeah, I mean, I think like most things in psychology and in life, I guess more broadly, it's probably a mixture of the two. I know we love to talk about things in this very dichotomous black and white. It's this
Yeah.
or that. It exists or it doesn't. I think it's probably a mixture. I think there's certainly reality to it, right? From like externally feeling a sense of pressure. But I do think, as you mentioned, internally, we tend to manufacture a lot of that ourselves. Ultimately, probably coming down to just, hey, what are you focused on in the moment? And, we always say, just, hey, focus on the moment, not the magnitude of the moment, or, you know, play the game, not the occasion, right? Like those are simple things, I think, from like an athlete standpoint, right? When you get caught up in the magnitude of the moment, when you get caught up on the occasion of it, you lose sight of the fact that like, well, it's still 60 feet 6 inches to from home plate to the pitcher's mound, and the football field is still 100 yards, right?
Hmm.
Um, I always say like we do a poor job, or the athletes who do this best, I think they're able to shrink things down, back down to size, right? And it becomes more manageable when you get back to the most simplest parts of the game, so to speak.
Hmm.
But yeah, more broadly, back to I guess where you started with the question, I think it's a mixture of both. I think external pressure exists. I think internally, though, we tend to magnify that and it becomes greater. So
So what I'm hearing from you is essentially perspective, especially on the internal side of processing the external pressure. Perspective is everything. Is that? I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, but
yeah, yeah. No, 1,000%. I mean, when I teach this with clients, with athletes, that's where I walk them through just uh, sort of just stepping into a situation, how that first and foremost is going to dictate or influence what comes, right?
yeah.
Do you end up feeling that stress, the anxiety of the moment? Do you feel all that pressure or not? Ultimately, probably starts with, well, what's your perspective going in? And if you feel going in, sort of the weight of the world is on your shoulders based on how you perform in that moment, you're being judged, and that is now something that is threatening to you as a human being, you're going to respond accordingly. Like, we are wired to detect threat. So your
Mm-hmm.
body kicks into gear, your mind starts going, at high speed. That is obviously then what impacts motor performance, your cognitive ability now when you're in the game and so on. Like, that's where poor performance comes from. But if we step into the moment and have just better perspective around it, uh, it doesn't mean that we won't still feel all the adrenaline, all the juice of kind of game day. But you're already operating from a position of strength, I think.
That's
And
good.
now, uh, because I've kind of kept the magnitude of the moment as I described it, I sort of keep that at an arm's distance. I can now be in control within the moment as opposed to the moment control me. And that's what it
Mm.
feels like, right? When that pressure is kind of on top of you, is it feels like my internal state, everything that I'm doing and thinking is influenced by what's around me.
Yeah.
As an athlete, as a performer, that's a pretty awful feeling, right? So if I can at least feel in control of myself within the moment, that's a complete game changer. But yeah, it starts with just your perspective going in.
So Corey, obviously, my audience. It's a good mix of current athletes and executives, much of which have kids of their own and they're married, and life is hitting them at all angles. So I literally just had one of the guys in my membership group who's an executive, 4 kids, C-suite, like a lot happening. And he came into one of our calls. He's like, guys, it's almost like I had a panic attack. I felt, everything going on with my kids and what they needed from me. My wife needed this from me. I have so many changes going on in our corporate structure right now. Like, I just feel like pressure's caving in on me. Those were his exact words. Corey, in those situations, I'm curious, do you have a universal strategy? Because I know every situation's different, right? Everyone's different, every situation's different. But do you have, for someone listening today, some sort of universal strategy they can employ when they feel like they're alone? They got no one to call. They don't have Corey to call. They can't call you, but they, in a pinch, have to get beyond this, change their perspective, get through this pressure filled moment, but they don't know how. How do you teach them to get through that?
Yeah, I mean, I think something necessarily just in that specific moment probably isn't the answer. You're sort of putting a band-aid on a bullet hole,
Mm,
right? I would rather approach it more so from, let's attack the root of the problem, right? And if you're feeling like worlds are colliding in these moments and separating work and life and so on, like, yeah, that's a challenge for anybody. But I would argue the work needs to be done well ahead of that moment. And now when you get into the moment, it feels a little bit more manageable. So I would come back to, just as sort of starting points. Number one, I'm a huge advocate, sort of a pillar that I really believe in for anybody, everybody. And this is, personally how I felt the difference in the impact in my life, um, is I try to meditate on a daily basis just to provide a sense of centering, kind of grounding you. I always, even when I introduce meditation to people, I use this great video from Kobe Bryant talking about how he utilized meditation. And he said, like, he always does it in the morning. And what it made him feel like is, now I'm just more prepared for whatever the day throws at me. And it helps sort of, um, not necessarily feel like I can dictate what happens in my day, but it's so much easier to sort of take it in stride.
sure.
Right. So I think doing something like that, sort of finding some calm, allowing your mind to come to a nice natural resting place, I think all of that is really great, because now then when you get into these moments, they shouldn't feel quite so chaotic. What I mean is, there can be, right, you can learn to approach those with a little more sense of calm, um, sort of acknowledge and understand that, like, all right, yeah, there's some stress here, but like, I'm good. I can work through this. So I think
Yep.
that is a really good strategy first and foremost. I think one of the other pieces, like sort of pillar, my philosophy, what I believe in, uh, I think we tend to do a very poor job of allowing ourselves or affording ourselves the opportunity to just sit in some reflection and just think about life and evaluate how things are going. Or even, for example, in the the example that you provided, like how many people, executives, for example, just at the end of the day, to take stock of like, all right, here are a couple of really important things I accomplished today. Here are a couple of things that I didn't get to, but I know I want to hit tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So what I've done there is I've sort of taken stock of the day, and highlighted even, some of the things that I got done. There's a sense of accomplishment for that. I've also sort of looked ahead to, hey, there's a couple things I want to hit first thing in the morning, or some things I have on the to-do list for tomorrow. I've already given myself the opportunity now to plan out a little bit of tomorrow. So for those anxious people, right, that goes a long way. But now when I close the book on today, it really does feel a little bit more like I can leave it at work.
Mm.
Now when I come home, it can sort of, I'm just at home. So now it's almost like I've narrowed my focus to, now I'm just a husband and a dad, right? Executive, he's good, right? Like
Yeah.
he might have had a long, overwhelming day, but I left the office knowing what I accomplished today and knowing what I have coming up tomorrow. I'm not shocked or surprised by any of that going on. There might be a million things going on in the office, but I have a plan for how to attack it, right?
Yeah.
I think now it's a little bit easier to separate when I do get home. And sure, like family stuff, kids running around, whatever, but I can just be present as a dad and not have all this weighing on me from work because I didn't give myself the opportunity to just reflect on the day.
That's good. That's good. Oh, I got to unpack some of this stuff because, of course, there's at least one person in my audience that heard you say meditation, and their response was, "Oh God, here we go, more woo woo stuff," from Jr. and his posse. Uh, li- so I hear you on the prep, and I want to go back to the moment that we discussed as well. Cory, especially for those who are not used to meditation and who are used to meditation being discussed in this kind of like new age woo woo, context. How does someone start to really take meditation seriously?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost is probably addressing some misconceptions about what it is and what it isn't. One of the examples I would provide there, one of the most common things I've heard from these, like, I don't know, self-proclaimed, like, achievement junkies, and, I'm just so busy and I'm wired in such a way, I'm different, I'm built different than everybody else.
Sure you are.
And they'll be like, yeah, I've heard good things about this, so I've tried it, but like, I'm just not that, I'm not wired that way. My mind can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's the equivalent of an obese person saying like, eating healthy is not for me. Like, I'm not wired that way. Right. Or somebody saying like, well, exercise is hard. It's not for me.
Yeah.
Like, it's on the same exact plane. Right. And you can laugh at those examples like, oh, that's ridiculous. Right. But it's not any different with meditation. To think that like you are just above meditation because you are just so different than everybody else. Like, I mean, what an arrogant, egotistical statement to make. Right. So I think first and foremost, starting there, I think even just understanding what it is, what it isn't, like I mentioned, this isn't just some exercise and relaxation necessarily. Right. Meditation is about focus. It's about learning how to be more present, more accepting, more aware. And I think that I referenced like the Kobe video. That's kind of what he's talking about, right? Is I'm ready to take on what the day throws at me because I'm just more present for it. I'm more aware of what's going on. I'm tapped into what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. Um, yeah, I always start there with me. I'm trying to educate him on like, well, let's talk about this, and
Yeah.
what are your questions? What's your misunderstanding? Like, let's go straight there. From there, though, I think there's also the sort of human nature, the tendency of, the person who hasn't worked out in years, who's all of a sudden gets this stroke of motivation, like claiming that they're going to do CrossFit 5 days a week. Like, the hell you are.
Yeah.
You haven't worked out in years. You're going to go do CrossFit every day? Like, no, you're not. You're better off
Yeah.
throwing on your workout clothes and doing a walk around the block.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So start small and then gradually build the intensity. And I think that's one of the things with meditation too, is people try to bite off more than they can chew,
Yeah.
and it makes it feel overwhelming then. And it is uncomfortable to sit there in silence with your own thoughts, right? But what if we started at just a couple minutes a day and then we built that over time, right? So I think that's probably a better strategy. So hopefully
Are
that answered your question.
Yeah. Are you a bit, especially for, I mean, I have everyone of all levels listen. I mean, I have some people listen to the show who are avid, meditate. They meditate daily. Uh, do you believe more in guided meditation for those starting, or like what?
If you're just
do you-
starting, I would say guided, right? I think a lot of people too. I mean, you could set your timer on your phone for 5 or 10 minutes, let's say, and be like, oh, I'm just going to focus on my breath. Like, good luck. How
Yeah.
long is it going to take for that mind to start to wander? My guess, by the second or third breath, it's already
Yeah.
to like, what's for dinner tonight, right?
Right.
And and the problem is then if there's not that guided sort of reminder to like, hey, come back to the breath, what you probably end up doing is spending 30 seconds meditating and 9.5 minutes overthinking like you normally would. And then you mistake activity for achievement, like,
For
well, day one meditation, check.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it's like that's not it. I think you can do that eventually. I've tried to meditate on a daily basis for years at this point, and I still probably prefer guided. Um, just because, again, that's why it's called a meditation practice. It's
Yeah.
not something I think you ever necessarily just graduate from or perfect. So,
Well, it's like anything too. I mean, I remember when I first started, it was like I was one of those guys who's like, "No, this ain't for me." Like I was seeing all these I was on 15 different topics by minute 2 until someone said, "Hey, did you try going 30 seconds one week and then 30 second keep stacking on?" I mean, we don't have to make it more complex than it is.
no, again, it's just like, hey, get the behavior down and then ramp up the intensity, the duration, whatever time. I would argue that's probably the way in terms of behavior change, right? Like that's the science of it and probably how you're going to get the best results for anything.
Yeah. So I want to go back to something you said too. It's just in my first question around pressure, you mentioned reflection. Now, my audience members, they are stubborn, man. When it comes to celebrating wins, reflection, Corey, I can't, JR, I can't reflect. I can't take time to reflect. I don't got time. I just finished at the office, or I just got done with my game at midnight. I got to go home. I got to be dad. I got to be a husband. I don't have time to reflect. But it's interesting, man. Like I've noticed the clients of mine who have truly made reflection a practice. I notice them handle pressure differently. I notice confidence, a higher level of confidence. I also recognize a deeper alignment with their identity, with how they talk, what they believe, how they act. I want you to speak to this because going back to that hypothetical I shared with you about the guy, it wasn't really hypothetical, it was someone in my group, about the guy just feeling the pressure of everything going on in his life. I'm sitting there going, is one of the tactics and strategies in that moment to reflect on why the hell you're feeling that way?
Yeah. Well, and
I
again,
mean,
that's I think the link here too. I think the reflection is better if you're constantly taking that time and you're working on your mind and meditating, right? You can draw from a deeper reservoir um, to go back to and understand. I think better, like what are the thoughts, what are the feel, like what am I sort of experiencing throughout my day to day? Again, it's going to make the reflection better, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, so a couple of things here. This is again one of the just sort of core to my philosophy, one of the pillars of what I believe, I think for anybody, just to kind of optimize the human experience in some ways. But uh, I've researched this a bunch. I actually recorded a podcast years ago with a guy. He's a Harvard Business School professor. His name is Joseph Badaracco. He wrote a book called Step Back, and the reason I'm sharing this is because um, he, I think, sort of noticed that same um, the same sort of dialogue from plenty of people, right? Like, I don't have time for this kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And so what he did was he interviewed some extremely successful people, several dozen. I want to say it was 40 something people, C-suite type people, and just sort of asked them about their reflection practices. And what came from that, he actually sort of coined this term. I've never heard it anywhere else. He called it, they tend to approach reflection as a little bit more of a mosaic.
Hmm.
A mosaic meaning done in these smaller chunks and pieces that sort of create a larger whole, right? So what these people, because again, we're talking about extremely busy, fast-paced people, important people, whatever,
Sure.
families, all the same stuff you described, but they're finding moments to sort of check in, reflect, evaluate how things are going. And enough of those moments over the course of one day, 1 week, like you can start to get a pretty clear picture, right? But that was a very deliberate process on their part. So, for example, what he described was a lot of these people, they were very intentional with how they utilized kind of the moments between the moments.
Hmm.
So, when I'm walking from one meeting to the next, for example, well, maybe there's 5 minutes there to check in, right? The commute to the office, the commute from the office, like turn off the shitty podcast and, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
check in with yourself. Sports
Yep.
talk radio will be there when you're done.
Yep.
Um, and so utilizing those small little moments throughout the day where you have the opportunity to just step back, sort of take stock of things, I think that goes a really long way. So just directly for the people who think like, I don't have time for that. I also think this can be something that you program into your day to day, your week to week, your month to month, whatever. Uh, I think I'm somebody just inherently, I'm a little more, introverted. I think a lot, right? So I'm doing this very regularly, but I do deliberately try to block time once a month to
Hmm.
sort of capture and sort of put into perspective, all right, how was the last 4 weeks of my life, right? And that's from a work standpoint, that's just life outside of work, personal life, family life, all of that.
Yeah.
Just trying to take stock of it. Hey, here are some highlights. Here are some areas where, maybe I wasn't as pleased or some challenges that came up and maybe some ideas on a better way forward. And here's now what I have to look forward to in this coming month so I can approach
That's
it
good.
with hopefully, I think it's almost like it gives you something to look forward to. It gets me excited. Like, yeah, there's probably plenty of stuff on my calendar that I'm not stoked for, but I have this handful of things that I'm really excited about. And it just, again, put things into perspective.
I love how you said you scheduled this. So when I first started this whole reflection practice, I, Corey, I'll be honest with you, man. Like I literally set reminders on my phone. It became so annoying because that's the thing too. It's like I hear a lot of, and I know it's a little different for athletes that have a lot of downtime in between games, practices, training, stuff like that. But for the executives that are just constantly moving so fast throughout the day, I say, look, I feel you on that, but are you setting intentional time and then honoring that time to do it? I mean, that's the key here. And I love how you said, hey, I schedule it a check in every month.
Mhm.
Like maybe for you, it's listening today, it's every 2 weeks.
Yep.
Or we're not saying it has to be 8 times a day for 5 minutes.
No, 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 no. And again, even the example I provided earlier, I think is a simple way of, again, this is where, knowing yourself and having some awareness goes a long way, right? Like, what do you need? Um, and some of the practices I described earlier, like really anxious people, the ones who struggle to separate work from life, those are the ones who I think really benefit from just like, hey, before you leave the office, literally take 2 minutes,
Yeah.
right? And just kind of close the book on today and
Yeah.
give yourself a plan for tomorrow and then just step away from it. That goes such a long way for them to feel like, okay, I can relax tonight and actually be present for my family, right? Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think you got to find what works for you. And I think I think unfortunately so much of kind of what we do in this space that we're in, people want you to just provide the answer for them.
Exactly.
And what I've always said about this, is like, um, I can tell you what I do and you can implement that. But until you make it your own, like you're implementing my mental game, not yours.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's not what this should be. Like I'm trying to provide you a framework, I'm trying to provide you suggestions. Your job is to now go experiment with that, see what works for you, what makes sense, what connects based on your day to day, based on how you're wired. You know what I mean? Like you've got to experiment a little bit to land on what becomes your own, let's say, reflection practice, or how you want to
Sure.
practice meditation or whatever it is. And does that take more work? Yes. But when you finally find something that works for you, you're going to own it so much more because it's yours, not mine.
100%. 100%. It's interesting you bring this up. I want to come back to Kobe. It's so funny, man. I hated Kobe. Like I'm an MJ guy. I grew up in
Those are
Chicago.
those are fighting words, brother. But
Okay, but wait, I'm not done yet.
we'll
I'm
come
not,
back to that.
I'm not done yet. Since he's passed and I've seen more of his stuff circulating, like I'm just like, man, I was missing out. Like this dude, and he made a comment on an interview. I don't know which interview it was, but I was listening to it actually with my son, and he said, "You know what? I don't believe in winning and losing. I only believe in winning and learning." And I was like, "Whoa, time out." If I said that or you said that, someone would be like, "Oh, look at these two softies." This is Kobe Bryant. This is
Yeah,
arguably one of the best players to ever play the game. And he said, I don't believe in winning and losing. I believe in winning and learning. Well, there's no learning without reflection.
correct.
None.
Correct. I
So,
mean, what one of a video I've used again, Kobe, Kobe's probably number one on my Mount Rushmore. So I've used his content and stuff for a long time. But, there's a specific video I use all the time actually to teach reflection. And it's him. And he's talking about like, I imagine being an NBA player and you were 82 game season, throw in preseason, postseason. If you were Kobe, right? Like you're playing 100 games a year at least. Um, if I don't understand why I played particularly well or poorly on a Tuesday, how would I expect to either replicate that good performance or learn from the poor performance and come back on Thursday and be any better or be consistent, right? And so we talked about he was after every game sort of checking in on like, hey, what worked and why did it work and how did it work? How can I make that work again? Right? Just because I'm Kobe Bryant doesn't mean that like I can just go drop 40. The
yep,
better I understand the variables that were present when I had success, the more likely I can replicate those performances
yep,
because I can replicate the process of it. I can't just snap my fingers and get the same box score. And
yep.
similarly, if I didn't learn from what happened on Tuesday, I mean, it's probably going to get exposed again on Thursday. Right. And that goes
Yeah.
beyond just, watching film. Film may be a part of it if you're an athlete, right? And that's great. But what shows up on film doesn't tell the full story, right? I mean, I know you work in baseball. I worked in baseball for a long time. Like, man, pitcher is great all week, dialed, dotting up in their bullpen. They're awesome before the game. And then all of a sudden during the game, it's like things get out of whack.
Mm-hmm.
And they go in straight into the dugout and they pull up the iPad and they're going, oh man, my mechanics are off. Like I'm flying open or this or that. It's like, well, let's take a step back here, right? Your mechanics were great before the game. They were really good all week, but all of a sudden in the game, they just left you. Like you just got worse in the last hour, right? And what many of them will do, just surface level, they just see like, oh, my mechanics are off. I need to work on my mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
I got to stay closed. I'm flying open, whatever. It's like fantastic. That's the equivalent of like you pulled the weed, just what you saw above the ground, and you left the root underneath.
Ooh, yes, sir.
Give it 24 hours, give it 48 hours, or in the pitcher's case, in your next start, I would bet that very same thing shows up again because you didn't address the root of the problem, right? And so again,
Man.
if they just ask like, well, hey, why was I flying open? I mean, my guess, right? Like you've probably come across this type of stuff. Like, hey, were you maybe you were trying to throw hard? Maybe you're frustrated by what happened with the previous hitter, gave up some shitty little hit, guy standing on first base, then he steals second, another blue hit, run scores. You're starting to get frustrated. You're like, man, I guess I just got to do this on my own. I'm just going to strike everybody out. So I start trying to throw harder, start flying open.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
It's amazing
anyways,
how that works. No,
that's amazing how that works.
so I said I was going to come back to Kobe. It's funny how I just went to Kobe, but I truly want to go back to what you said about making it your own. And this is something I'd love for you to speak to because the good and the bad, we have social media. There's self-proclaimed influencers and experts out there, and then there's true experts. But so I'm bringing this up because again, this came up in my with my group of men, former athletes who are now executives. And it was again, we were talking about wins because I have Cory you'll appreciate this. I have in my clutch club a win board. So I make guys every Monday post a win for the week. That's it. Like God, that's like pulling teeth. But but there's a win board. And one of my guys posted this thing from a expert that said you need 3 daily wins. And it was physical, mental, and spiritual. And then at the bottom it said, you have these, you're a complete winner. And I'm going, huh. First of all, I always get my heart rate up when I see someone tell me I need something. And then, so wait, if I went through my day and I could identify a physical win and a mental win, but I don't have a spiritual win, I'm not a complete winner. So I want you to double down on just sharing with my audience the cautions of just taking what someone said and implementing it into your life. And if you don't meet that, you are an absolute failure.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it yourself. I mean, some of that is just influencer talk and um I don't know,
But there's so
probably
much of it. There's so much of it
yeah,
out there, Cory. Like, how do we get better as leaders, as high performers at filtering out the absolute crap
yeah.
and
I mean,
actually,
yeah,
getting
and
something that'll
again,
help?
I think some of that is like you have to consider the source, and just because and understand like just because somebody claims they're an expert doesn't mean they're an expert. Um, is anything that they're saying sort of rooted in any kind of science, or is this like bro science? You know, there's a huge difference there. You know, and I don't think people understand that is not as fine of a line as you might think it is.
You almost made me spit
Well,
my water out of my microphone.
I think again, it's stuff like that. It's so easy to digest, right? And if you're just casually scrolling social media and you're uninformed and you're not really sure what it is that you're looking for or looking at, then yeah, you can be swayed into thinking that that person really knows what they're talking about. Like obviously, the spirit of hey, feeling a sense of accomplishment in your day, like that's fine, that's great, right? I'm sure research supports that, but to put it as almost so plainly as you need to do these 3 things or else like you're a loser is essentially what they're saying. Like it's just garbage, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and the science is not going to support that.
Yeah.
So again, it's like the idea of it is fine, right? And again, encouraging people to be active and to tap into their spiritual life. Great. That stuff's fine. But to make claims like that, that's where you have to draw the line and understand, like, all right,
Yeah.
that's where they're taking this a step too far. And you just have to be more informed, I hope, as the consumer of that to
Yeah.
understand, like, all right, there's no real science there. Can I get behind kind of the idea of this? Sure.
Absolutely.
But do I have to practice this in the exact way that this bro is encouraging me to? Like, probably not.
Bro science. Quoted bro. I might have to put that in as a top quote by Cory Shaffer.
That's
Just
that's
don't
fine, man.
believe the the bro science. All
Bro
right.
science
So
exists, man. Hey,
it
it's
is. It's
it's
crazy. It's
it's the influencers who try to be in our space. It's the influencers 1,000% from like a nutrition, an exercise, weightlifting, like that space littered with
yeah.
people who are just trying to slang you anything to get likes and get, whatever. So
Yeah. Okay. So we're both off our technical soapbox. So as we're wrapping up today, I have to touch this because, you know, this burnout topic. Cory, everyone listening to the show wants to have sustainable success. I mean, they wouldn't be listening to your podcast, my podcast. We listen to things because we want to get better and continue to sustain a high level of performance, whether it's at home, with our kids, in our workplaces, whatever. But that fine line between pushing and working our tails off and burning out. And I'd love for you, and we can end the conversation with this, this part of it. It's just that highly driven people, and I feel like I had this as a former athlete coming into the professional space. I just want to sprint. I hate running marathons. I ran one 5K. I'm like, never again. And then I met your wife who made us run a 5K twice, not once. Cussed her name out the whole time I was running. That's for you, Kim. But how do we strike that balance? I mean, for the athletes we work with, Cory, we hear about, I'm sore, I'm tired. But on the executive side of things, it's straight up self-inflicted. I am hitting the gas 24/7. I'm not letting up until I reach this level of success. How do we make that? How do we balance this?
I could tell a long story or a short story here. I'll go with the short story, or just like use a metaphor, I guess. All right, so everybody knows the story of the tortoise and the hare, right?
We hope.
And we hope, okay. But the idea being, slow and steady wins the race, okay. Um, I think the reason why the tortoise wins is he stays disciplined to the task at hand, right? Which in that case is get from A to B as fast as you can. The consistency comes in his effort. He can only move so fast, but he can do that consistently over time. Okay. The hare, for the purposes of that task, running a race, is the superior talent, right? Much better suited for it, but lacks discipline. Doesn't keep the main thing, right? Sort of loses sight of it. And then his effort is inconsistent. Okay. I think big picture, I usually use that as a segue into telling this broader story. Um, Actually, real life example is called the 20-mile march. Okay, this example or the story is about the race to the South Pole, and two guys become the primary individuals in this race. They have very different strategies for how they're going to get to the South Pole first. The one guy is a little bit more like the hare. It's sort of this stop and go mentality. We're going to go 40 miles one day and 0 miles the next day. How do we feel on any given day? What's the weather like? That was kind of what dictated how they traveled. The other guy took a more tortoise-like approach, and he employed this 20-mile march strategy, which meant regardless of the weather, regardless of how we feel or how motivated we are, every single day we will march at least 15 miles. It might take all damn day because we're in the most treacherous environment in the world, but we're going to get at least 15 miles, but we will never march more than 20 miles because we need the energy to show up again tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day and do it again and again and again and again. So leaving from different locations, but relatively similar distances within a few days of each other, the guy who 20-mile marched reached 90 degrees south a full month, like 32 days before the other guy. Plants the flag, does the explorer stuff, takes a picture, and then 20-mile marches all the way back to safety. The other guy Again, kind of stop and go. How do we feel? Whatever. Imagine making this 700-mile trip, showing up and realizing we lost the race, but now we have to march our ass all the way back. And the entire group dies on the way back because their effort was so inconsistent. They get swept up in storms. They pass away. So I say all of that, okay, just because I think that is the way forward, right? To your point, it's, can you be disciplined and consistent day in and day out, but also realize that if you're in this thing for the long haul, you need the energy, you need the enthusiasm to be able to do it day after day after day, week after week after week. And that's probably then a better strategy, right? So I think in the long run, why that kind of 20-mile march approach works is because, hey, even when things are really difficult, chaotic, overwhelming, like you're always going to go get your 15 miles.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But even when things are great, you're still putting in the appropriate amount of work and still getting some things done, but then capping it off because, again, I need the energy to do it tomorrow. I think it's probably reverse, right? For most people, athletes, professionals.
Oh, yeah.
And what I mean by that is like, we have the tendency to overdo things when things are not going well. And when things are great is when we tend to coast and take, our foot off the gas. But it doesn't matter. If you apply this concept, the point is every day, can you strive to meet a bare minimum, but never exceed to the point to where you don't have enough energy to show up and do it again the next day.
That's pure gold. And you know what? I want to connect a dot back to how we started this.
Please do.
When I'll play one of the guys in my audience who just heard what you said. He goes, but Cory, how do I know? How do I know I'm making any progress if I'm just, little by little, and I know the flag is so far away? Like it's not satisfying to me to know I'm still that far away instead of just hitting the gas and going full throttle. And to your point earlier, if you're reflecting every day and you're notching up the wins and you're actually saying, oh, shit, did this today. Learned this today. Now you are getting the dopamine hit. Now you are seeing, wait, I am making progress here.
Correct.
So it debunks that argument.
Yep. No, 100%. And again, I would argue too, even with that point, is like, well, do you want to go fast or do you want to sustain it? Right? Like that's at the core of this. And so, yeah, I'd rather you feel like, like, hey, just sort of start marching, so to speak. And then you look up and after a week or after a month, it's just like, I've made some progress.
Yeah.
Now put your head back. Like, hey, do I need to adjust anything? Right? Can I keep engaging in the same process? But if I need to tweak or adjust, fine.
Yeah.
But let's just put our head down and start marching again. And you check back in and it's like, hey, I made some more progress. It's not as sexy, right?
No,
but
no.
It's going to be more effective. And that's the point, right? Do you want it to look good or do you want it to work? Like that's kind of at the core of this.
It's funny. The lessons we take from things we do that you would never think you'd get a life lesson from. You mentioned it earlier, CrossFit. So there was this period of time, 2 years, right before COVID happened. I did CrossFit. And I will tell you, those first, because I was like, man, I'm to be the athlete. We get to the Metcons and I go out of the gate hard and there's 3 rounds of something. I got to round 2 and I'm like, uh-oh. And then I'm seeing everyone just passing me. But that's where I learned it. Like, if you want to be truly successful doing Metcons and CrossFit, you, buddy, better pace yourself. Otherwise, you're going to be tanked.
Mm-hmm. Right. And again, is the goal to start the workout or is the goal to finish the workout?
Finish. So good. So good. Cory, man, you're awesome. All right. So before we get to the big domino, I want people to be able to find you. So where could we find you on social? Where could I lead my audience guests to?
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably not the most active social media follow, but occasionally. Twitter, I believe my handle's at Cory Shaffer, PhD. You can find me on LinkedIn, just at my name. I have an Instagram. I tend to keep it private, so I'm not going to direct you there.
Okay.
But yeah, Twitter, LinkedIn, probably the best ways.
Okay. Beautiful. Awesome. All right. So before I put you on the spot, I'm going to just remind my audience, look, you will find Cory because we're going to make it easy for you. Just go to comingupclutch.com, go to the show notes. You will see everything about the show today, plus links to get in touch with Cory and check out all of his great stuff that he's doing, especially on LinkedIn. So that's just a reminder. I always got to do it, Cory. Got to remind these knuckleheads. Comingupclutch.com. It's right there for you. We make it easy for you. Okay. Big domino. This is easy. Don't worry. I'm not going to put you in a corner and make you say something that you don't want to say. It's just simply, I call it the big domino because it's that one key takeaway you want our audience to walk away with today. I call it the big domino because once they implement this or execute on this, it just makes everything a little bit easier or unnecessary. And again, it could be something you've already said and you just want to underscore it. But what's that one key takeaway you want us to take away with today?
I feel like the majority of the conversation was centered around for a minute there, meditation. We hit reflection. And then lastly, this sort of concept, this idea is like 20-mile march. I think immediately, probably the simplest things would be number one, you mentioned this yourself. Again, most people tend to have this thing with them, your cell phone with you anywhere, everywhere. And in many cases, that's not a good thing. But you can't leverage technology to work for you instead of against you. And so you said this yourself earlier. I'm the same way. I set reminders for myself for everything. I've been trying to meditate daily for 6 years now, and yet every day a reminder still goes off and tells me to meditate. Like, do I need the reminder? No, but the accountability sure does help, right? So whether it was meditation or it's just reflection, setting reminders, whether they're daily, and activities like meditation, probably best done daily, right? The consistency of that is what you need over time. Reflection, again, find the right cadence for you, whether that's daily, weekly, monthly, and then protect that time, put it on your calendar if you can. Even the 20-mile march might be a little bit harder to implement. You might need to think on that a little bit. But there's probably a simple way that you can implement that. It just means, again, you got to take a step back, sort of reflect on what does your day-to-day look like now,
Sure.
And how can I implement that a little bit more effectively here moving forward.
That's good.
So yeah, I would say I would start there. Just do something simple. Pick one of those. Say, hey, yeah, I'd love to do some more consistent reflection. We'll take your phone out right now and set a day and a time as a reminder that you want to just check in. And then take it a second step if you like and protect that time on your calendar. If you can, even better. So.
Love it. Leverage your technology to work for you, not against you. A lot of people having these things working against them today.
No doubt.
So
yeah,
I absolutely love that reminder. Cory, man, I appreciate you. Thank you for your wisdom, making time in between all your crazy travel to come on and share your thoughts and have this conversation for our crew today. I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you having me on. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. All right, crew. That's my man, Cory Shaffer. Now, here's the deal. If you were blessed by today's episode, if you learned something that you know is going to make you better, my ask is you pay it forward. Share this episode with someone you love and care about. Come up clutch for someone in your life that you know needs to be encouraged by what Cory shared today. And again, if you want the show notes from today's episode, just go to comingupclutch.com and click on this episode. All right. This episode is a wrap. Until next week's 5-minute drill, remember, winning isn't a result, it's a lifestyle. So keep pursuing that life of champions.
This episode is over. Get more no BS content to help you master your mind, body, and relationships by hitting subscribe. This is Coming Up Clutch with JR. Thanks for listening.